The Make a Difference documentary provided context and information on the importance of brook trout and their habitat, as well as followed students from James Madison High School as they collected stream data in the field. As explained in Make a Difference, the brook trout is native to all the Atlantic coast states from Maine to Georgia and is a cold water species clinging to indigenous waters carved out after the retreat of the last significant glaciation around 10,000 years ago. Like other salmonoids, brook trout will often migrate during their life cycle, which typically occurs before spawning in the fall. This behavior can be seen in the southern ranges of habitat, but as the fish swim downstream, they are met with higher water temperatures and other environmental barriers. Data collected by the students has been used by the Virginia Department of Game and Inland Fisheries, as well as the nonprofit conservation organization Trout Unlimited, to determine if brook trout can be released into the local streams. The film focused specifically on brook trout and how the species climate is disappearing in the Atlantic region, and how the students from James Madison High School were hunting for the few sustainable habitats that remain. Make a Difference highlighted the importance of the stream team from James Madison High School and the work that they do outside of the classroom.
So Stream Team is basically a group of students, and what happens is we basically go out to streams and assess their ability to sustain trout. And we take multiple measurements such as riffle run, conductivity, pH, temperature, and we also test the macroinvertebrate index, which is basically to put it in basic terms, the amount of bugs in the water that the trout feed on.
The Stream Team is a club at James Madison High School, and they go out and they assess sub-watersheds in Northwest Virginia and search for new release sites for trout and the classroom fish being raised in over 22 classrooms in Northern Virginia.
Using the Sea Club at James Madison High School as a starting point, the Stream Team has expanded into other schools in order to have greater reach outside of the classroom for both stream assessment, as well as a potential expansion into stream restoration work.
From the beginning, we started as sort of part of Sea Club, but we realized that because of our numbers and because of possible grants that we may get, we had to split off.
Well, we always want to try to start at the local level first before moving on to national, and communicating with other local schools creates a solid platform for growth at the local level and eventually the national level. Over the past year, we've been able to communicate with multiple schools such as Woodson and West Springfield. And we've also had the opportunity to go to non-government organizations such as Trout Unlimited and Isaac Walton League. And what we've done is we basically told them about our model about training high school students in citizen science and resource management. And they've really taken this into account because many of them have gained interest and have actually formed a charter comprising of American Fisheries Society, Trout Unlimited, and Isaac Walton League.
James Madison High School reached out to me and my friend Rebecca at West Springfield earlier last year, and we went to the Trout Unlimited meeting, and that's where our first contact with it began. And then throughout the year we became more involved, and then we started going to more of the actual projects, and hopefully we're trying to get it at our school, and hopefully we can actually get the program more established there as well.
Okay, well, I think it's really important to have as many people as you can working on a project. And with this specifically, like Catharpin Creek and other creeks, there's so much land to cover, and like the more we can cover, the more good we can do. And just in general, the more manpower you have, the more change you can make.
In past years, we've had a problem of not having enough members come out to the outings, and that really plays a part in monitoring the streams because we aren't able to monitor and assess the streams as quickly because there are fewer of us. And having those extra set of hands allows us to assess the stream a lot quicker and move on to the other streams that we have to cover during the day.
As the program was beginning to spread to other schools, and national expansion was in the near future, the potential to do restoration work was becoming a possibility. Past students, alongside Dr. Kirk Smith, had discovered a site in Haymarket, Virginia that needed restoration work to be done.
Well, the discovery of the site in Haymarket is a great story because it started out with us trying to find new sub-watersheds that had not been investigated or explored in a while. And best way to get information is to start asking questions. So we usually start with the professionals, and unfortunately the professionals spend most of their time in public waters. Well, a lot of the watersheds that are suitable for brook trout are probably on private property in Northwest Virginia. So we got word of this, of these streams right outside Haymarket from one of the teachers here at James Madison High School, Mr. Gongaware, and he sent us down to look at Catharpin Creek, which is right where, right near where Broad Run goes under 66, right outside Haymarket. And we went out and investigated Catharpin Creek and decided it wasn't suitable for brook trout. We did not do any scientific measurements there. We could just survey it by walking it, and we could see that it would not be suitable habitat for brook trout. So we were about ready to leave the area, and the ranger said, "Hey, I know this other creek that's about 5 miles from here. If you have time, you might want to look at it." And so we went up into this preserve that they have, and this area is not actually accessible to the public. It's closed to the public. And we went into that sub-watershed, and we took a look at the creek, and we said, wow, this is wonderful. Perfect habitat for a small stream. Not ideal for brook trout, but considering it was such a small stream, we said for a small stream, this is pretty darn good. It doesn't get much better than this. Of course, we had no idea what the temperatures were like or any water chemistry was like. We had no idea of the specifics. So we decided after that date, after the original survey, that we would come back and do our scientific survey in the spring, and that's what we did.
After the site was discovered, the location needed to be investigated and tested to see if a restoration project could be taken on and if it would be beneficial. Brook trout raised in the classroom had previously been released at the site by Dr. Smith and Madison students due to favorable stream conditions. Even though there was a potential for the brook trout to survive at the site, it was clear that much work would be needed in order for the population to survive and thrive. The idea was proposed, and an initial expedition date was set for December 18, 2017. On the brisk Monday morning, a group of scientists and 2 students ventured into the site for the first exploration. The group made their way through the woods, assessing the stream, its flow, the bank condition, and foliage in the area, while making their way through the long stretch of preserve.
So where we are now, we got lots of teenagers. they can do a lot of manual labor. And this is in a preserve where using any kind of mechanization might be highly restricted anyways. So this is going to be manual labor, kids getting in there, getting their feet wet, getting their hands dirty, which would be good for my demographic. I don't know about yours. They need it.
Is Bull Run Mountain Natural Area Preserve. It's comprised of 2,500 acres, roughly, give or take. The tract of land we're on right here is called Jackson Hollow. It was once a camp recreational site, since they had a hunt and fish camp here in like the 1940s. It was here, this was dammed up and was a lake. At some point the dam blew out after a storm, and since then the recreational site went under. We acquired the land at some point after that. I'm the preserve manager here for the Virginia Outdoors Foundation, but we signed a deed of dedication on all the acreage to the state of Virginia. So it's a nature preserve. So we have that deed of dedication on it, so it'll always remain preserved for everyone. And that's why I assume it's a great site for trout. Basically closed off to the public. There's no access. It's just for researchers, educational groups, and the like. We do have 600 acres on the southern section that has about 7 miles of hiking trails through it. We also have on the northern section back up this way about 8 miles of hiking trail, and that's just for educational groups though, but we maintain it and it's guided hikes only. But there's some pretty distinct community types throughout the preserve, so it's a pretty special section of land throughout, you know, the mountain, but there's a lot of dips and valleys.
Oh, I caught a bunch of bluegills here, just a ton of bluegills. That, you know, on the fly rod, I thought that was fun.
Yeah, I was probably a bass bluegill setup, you know.
And I found that if they don't stock bass, I found that the birds, this is my theory, the birds will, you know, the bass eggs will get on there, some of them they'll go from one pot to another. I claim that they stock it that way. Now, I don't know how true that is.
I think with some fish it's true. I don't know about massive.
But I just think it's, you know, I would ask people who's put the fish in here. We don't put any fish in here.
Okay.
Yeah, I've actually hiked in from the road up there. From the top of the ridge down, and it's a braided stream up there. We never even got to a place where there was one channel. We just didn't get that far.
And if we're out of the influence of the impoundment, I'm not sure how far up the impoundment went. Maybe this was just the upper reach.
Yeah, I think we're still in it just because of the vegetation.
That's what I'm
here.
saying, but we're sort of, you know, nearing the end.
Yeah.
If we go upstream of the impoundment, I would think that would be a good reference.
Okay.
And maybe it's the geology of this watershed. There may be just a lot of finds in this stream, and it's less about the impoundment.
Right.
But even if it is about the impoundment again, there's really not, there's no mechanism other than time that I know of to deal with, you know, just a slight
What about shading?
fine. It can certainly be planted.
Okay.
The few stretches that there really isn't anything going on, that would be a benefit. And again, I think the challenge is you're planting, but I think probably part of why there isn't a lot of woody in here is because you've got herbaceous invasive. So it's going to be a matter of trying to deal with that to allow the woody, you know, to get a foothold.
Right.
Challenging, but not insurmountable.
The site posed many challenges that the students would have to overcome, but the general mood suggested that the project could be done. On the walk back, any doubt left was blown away, as while peering into the water in one of the deeper pools, a surviving brook trout was spotted. Although it disappeared back into the rocks as soon as it had arrived, it gave great hope to everyone present about the potential for the future of the site. After the initial expedition, the site was approved. Once this approval had gone through, the planning process began. But first, in order to understand stream restoration, it's important to understand stream destruction. Let's break it down. For over 2 centuries, as the United States expanded westward and became the world's leading industrial nation, stream habitats were exploited for their natural resources and served as depots for waste. Even before industrialization, Americans altered stream courses for watermills and other purposes all along the eastern seaboard, separating watersheds and making streams impassable for many fish species who often migrate up and downstream in different seasons. This means that as animal and plant species, the living or biotic factors of their ecosystems suffered from pollution, overfishing, and overharvesting, as well as extinction, so too were the non-living or abiotic factors permanently altered. This combination predictably led to incredibly unhealthy watersheds across the United States. Historically, the 2 main human activities impacting brook trout streams within the species' native eastern United States range are agriculture and logging. Both activities have traditionally altered the protective riparian buffers within watersheds. Depletion of these buffers, especially in headwater streams, exposes streams to severe climatic and local disturbances within the watershed. Without the buffers, streams are more prone to flooding, erosion, drought, and increased water temperatures. More recently, an increase in impermeable surfaces, the introduction of non-native fish species, and barriers to migration have all been documented as having a negative impact on water quality within streams. While modern agriculture and logging practices may be more aligned with protecting streams and water quality, many of the other external impacts can be more difficult to manage. These negative impacts of anthropogenic actions can, however, be slowly improved through restoration and environmentally conscious construction methods. Students from local high schools will be performing restoration work at Catharpin Creek to begin chipping away at all the work that needs to be done around the globe. We had already done an investigation with professionals and received approval for the site. The next step in the process was a preliminary expedition with the leaders from each school so everyone could become familiar with the site, and so we could scope in the section where we would start the restoration. After that, we settled on the dates for the official restoration and set the plan into action. The first step in the field involving many students was the preliminary expedition on April 28, 2018. On this expedition, both the stream team and the trout team jumped into action, and the leaders from partner schools were visiting the site for the first time. The trout team released more brook trout from the classroom into a more suitable stretch of the stream, lower in the preserve. The stream team fought their way upstream where the conditions were far less favorable. They then began to conduct their normal stream assessments.
So right now we're trying to determine the flow of the stream, and what's happening is, so we have the width measured out, and Mary determines like specific points within the width. Arthur is going to put the propeller down, and then it calculates the rate of the flow. And ready, set, stop.
186.
So 186 is kind of a medium flow. The highest flow we got was 611, which is 611 spins per minute. So the higher spins per minute, the better the flow is and the better it is for the brook trout.
So right now I'm calibrating the pH probe, and when you calibrate it, it sort of lets the instrument know like this is a pH of 7 and this is a pH of 10, and we usually do a 2-point calibration, so we calibrate for pH of 7 and 10 because most of the streams that we sample have a pH that's a little higher than 7. So pH is important because if you have a lower pH, that means that the stream is kind of acidic, which isn't good for brook trout, and if you have a really high pH, that means that the runoff that is going into the stream is basic, and that also isn't good for trout.
So we're picking up sediment, which is going to flow into the net, and then we're going to collect macroinvertebrates and sort them. And after we identify them, we can make an index score for the stream. It's used to like determine the health of the stream, and then scientists use it to evaluate trends.
The leaders from the other schools got to see the site for the first time and begin to understand the scale of the project.
And today we're trying to learn from the Madison students sort of how they do their trout in the classroom release, I guess, because it's kind of new to Woodson. Hopefully we'll be releasing here in the future, and today we're sort of just like scouting the area, seeing what we can do to make the habitat better, identifying invasives, like marking the natives and that kind of thing. So just getting prepared for our restoration.
We're out here today. First, we just wanted to observe the trout release, because I think in the future, maybe in a couple years, West Springfield's looking to like investigate doing the trout in the classroom thing and then releasing them here. But also, I'm personally here for the stream restoration. So right now we're kind of looking and we're trying to see what invasive species need to leave, what native species we can get cuttings from, and then we can plant along the stream bed, so that will provide shade to actually protect the trout. And so the ranger out here, he's helping point out what we need to get rid of. There's some grasses, different bushes and like differentiating between invasive versus native.
So I think the inclusion of high school students are a wonderful addition to this. I work a lot with researchers and state agencies, and it's fantastic to have a group of young people that are excited about doing such deep and important work here.
The expedition opened a door to the public as to what was occurring at the site. Washington Post writer Peter Carey and photographer Dana Smith tagged along to see all we were doing. Both were very captivated and intrigued by the project, and just one short day after the expedition, an article was published in the Washington Post. The article opens as follows. On a sunny Saturday, 20 high school students thrashed through thorny brambles to descend upon a burbling little stream in Jackson Hollow, north of Haymarket. One student kneels in the water with a thermometer, another gauges the current with a flow meter, a third measures the water's oxygen content. Others maneuver a net to catch and catalog the stream's insects. Still, others make plans to plant saplings along the banks to create shade. Others stand by to enter their findings into a database map. The article then continues explaining the importance of brook trout in Virginia and how the students at James Madison High School have been checking in on local streams for some time. The article then says, Trout Unlimited, a nonprofit dedicated to preserving and improving fish habitat, sponsors an education project in more than 200 Virginia schools. Under the program known as Trout in the Classroom, students get fish eggs in the fall, nurture them in aquariums, release them into streams in the spring, and learn science. Most of the fish get released into the same creeks for two reasons. The state frowns on genetically commingling aquarium-raised trout with native brook trout in their mountain streams, and only a few other streams have been identified as a good habitat. After this, Carey provides context on the Sea Club and the work that they do with the trout they raise. He then closes the article with some questions for the reader. So state officials gave permission to the James Madison students to release their classroom-raised trout there last spring. On Saturday, they released 55 more. Will they survive? Maybe. Could this become a new home for self-reproducing wild trout? Too soon to tell. But the students have found a new home for trout raised in their classroom, and that's a good start. Once the preliminary expedition had been completed, the official restoration date was selected for June 2nd and 3rd, 2018. After the date was selected, the planning process continued. Catharpin Creek struggles due to an abundance of invasive species, most notably Rosa multiflora, commonly known as multiflora rose. Multiflora rose and other invasive species, be it other plants and animals like the lionfish in the Caribbean Sea and the Burmese python in the Florida Everglades, are able to rapidly reproduce and outcompete native species for resources, hence the name invasive. This is facilitated by the absence of natural predators to the invasives that are outside of their natural range. Environmental and even economic damage occur as invasive species come to dominate their new habitats. The most abundant invasive at Catharpin Creek, Rosa multiflora, fits this pattern. In the 1860s, this flowering plant was imported from its natural range in Japan, Korea, and eastern China to North America as rootstock. For the next 100 years, it was widely used for living fencing, as cover for animals and in road medians. This active encouragement of its spread, combined with the plant's ability to thrive without its natural predators, led to it quickly becoming an uncontrollable weed. Rosa multiflora causes many problems at Catharpin Creek. The main problem is that it chokes out native trees that protect the stream bank. During extreme wet weather events, the unstable soil at Catharpin Creek can be peeled away from the stream banks by raging high water. The destabilization can lead to considerable loading of silt and sediment to the creek. A major part of the restoration project will be dedicated to removing as much Rosa multiflora from along the streambed as possible and planting native species where they belong. In the place of Rosa multiflora, the stream restoration team will reintroduce species native to the area, namely the black willow tree. Native to the eastern United States, the black willow provides for bees, an at-risk group of organisms, and small animals. More importantly, its roots prevent erosion by holding soil in place, keeping stream water clean, and its leaves and branches provide shade, keeping stream water cool in summer heat. The trees being planted along the stream bank have many benefits for the stream as well as animals and insects outside of the water. The trees, however, are also extremely beneficial for fish populations. The trees provide shade over the water, and studies have shown water temperatures to drop as much as 10 degrees when ample shading of the surface water is provided by vegetation along the stream bank. Also, these species tend to grow in very dense thickets, ideal for discouraging wading birds from foraging for brook trout. When the restoration day finally came, there was a sense of excitement throughout all those involved. People were ready to get to work, so they jumped in as soon as the day began.
Well, we're doing some stream restoration work. We're removing invasives today, and they also earlier today took some cuttings from a black willow, and they will grow those cuttings in potting soil, and after the roots have been established with those cuttings, they'll go ahead and plant the willows along the stream bank. Why I'm out here today, I'm here to support my students. The students are doing most of the work. And so we have students from Woodson High School, West Springfield High School, and Madison High School, as well as a ranger from Virginia Outdoors Foundation. And I'm here to support them in their effort to reestablish native plants and remove invasive plants.
Pouring out multiflora rose. Yeah, it's an invasive. So there's a lot of clippings everywhere because we've been putting them back, but right now we have like premature baby ones, so we're just pulling them out at the roots.
I came because I thought that the whole trout in the classroom and releasing the trout program was very interesting, and since we don't have that at our school, this was a way to help out with it and just try to help.
Yeah, I think yeah, I'm just like a really big proponent of like helping the environment and like just getting out here and doing what we can to help. And so what we're doing here today is to help, because this is one of only a few creeks that can actually pose habitat that they can live in and they can survive the summer. And so what we're trying to do is make sure that they will survive the summer with these plants and like keep the stream bed healthy, etc., and make sure that like there's nothing in the way, any obstacles for these brook trout to survive.
Multiflora rose is commonly confused with blackberry, but the main difference is the multiflora rose has multiple leaves while blackberry has 3 leaves. And it's also, the thorns are just much more bigger than the blackberry bush. I'm here because I love the earth and I want to help it. I think this is just one of the many things we could do to contribute.
Well, it's cool because we're like helping the earth and making it healthier. I don't know.
Yeah, we're students, teachers, governmental organizations. We're like working together.
Yeah, it's good to like get outside the classroom and doing things other than like just learning out of the book.
Since this is a nature preserve, we don't use herbicides and pesticides. When we're basically trimming back the multiflora rose and digging up its roots and leaving them out to dry so that they will die back.
Well, they're trying to restock the stream with trout, and trout need a lot of shade. They need quick running water. So they want to put some trees in here that'll provide that shade and make a more amiable habitat for the trout.
Along with the conclusion of the restoration days came a sense of great accomplishment and a furthered realization of the importance of the work that had been done.
Well, the lasting benefit of the stream restoration project out at Catharpin Creek is it is in a preserve. So whatever they do there, they can rest assured that it's not going to be destroyed 20 years from now, 50 years from now. It's a preserve, so their work will stand, and it will be measurable for years to come. Unlike other areas where you might restore a creek, and 10 years from now there might be a housing development that comes in and erases everything that you did before. That's not going to be the case at Catharpin Creek. It's in a preserve, it's protected, and they can actually take their grandchildren there years from now and explain what they did, what impact they had as individuals.
It's important. First off, most people, 99%, whatever figure, most people put a great value on quality natural resource. we want our streams to be clean. We want our lakes to be clean. I mean, that's sort of a given. We want the air to be clean. I mean, so no one was really going to argue that. So it's very important for us to have natural resources capable of sustaining fish and wildlife at a normal level, at some base level that's, we don't want degraded systems. I guess that's the best way to put it. Nobody wants to see our natural resources degraded. So we need to be able to understand and adapt and fix streams as necessary to try to allow them to sustain a level of natural life, of natural resources. So then that starts at the bottom, from the bugs, from all the way to the top. And the earlier that people get that, the reason it's so heartening to see Madison and the work that's being done with the creeks and the brook trout program is the knowledge that they're gaining and already passionate about, and being able to pass that on to their friends, and as they grow, their peers and coworkers, and exact some change, okay? Because they're going to be the ones that'll try to make those streams better. So essentially, when I'm retired, hopefully not too soon, but there's going to need to be somebody behind me, to help try to do the things that I've been doing, and conserve our natural resources and hold those, for future generations.
With the first steps of the restoration now out of the way, plans for the future of the site were beginning to arise. Due to the size of the preserve, the project could continue for 10 to 20 years, so coming up with a plan was the important next step.
What I'd like to see happen out at Catharpin Creek, I would like to see it become not just a long-term restoration project, but also maybe an outdoor classroom. I would like to see us eventually hand it over to Prince William County schools, because it actually is in Prince William County. So I think it's only right that they take the lead if they want to. If they don't want to, then we will certainly continue our presence there and develop it as not only as a long-term project, but maybe an outdoor classroom where people can learn. We can take our classes out there, actual classes out there, and not just our club members, but actual classes out there, and then also maybe do projects with other schools, so that we're actually working with other schools. We started that this last year. Here we have high schools competing with each other for everything, sports, debate club, what have you. Wouldn't it be nice to have a long-term project where you actually have high schools working together, and other schools too, elementary schools, middle schools, working together instead of competing? That would be, maybe that's just an idea right now, but I think that in a perfect world, it would be great to have that as an example for other school systems and other conservation organizations to follow as a model.
Having the ability for high school students to do real restoration and fieldwork at Catharpin Creek has opened the eyes of many to the positive environmental impact they can have. The outreach and cooperation with other schools has made our local community a little bit larger, and the work that we have started together has a bright future ahead.